Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friend. Thanks for being with us today. I'm really, really excited to introduce you guys today to Karen Briscoe. She's with HBC Group with Keller Williams down in McLean, Virginia. And she has been in real estate and running a mega team for years. She has done it all. She's still helping buyers and sellers. She's running a hugely successful team in the top 100 in the country. And she's also the host of the real estate podcast, 5 Minute Success. She's authored 3 books that we're going to talk about. She's basically the master of all things real estate. And I'm just so glad she's here. Her energy is amazing. And you guys are going to love this interview. So with no further ado, I'd love to introduce Karen. Thank you for being here today.
Well, Erin, who doesn't love the idea of pursuing freedom? I mean, we all want more of that. And, in our conversation, I know that that's going to come out as we visit today. So I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you took the time to be with us today. And I'd love for you to give yourself a little introduction, a backstory of your journey in the real estate industry. And then we'll start to dig into the concepts that you specialize in, like being an expert on time and the importance of focusing on self-actualization in order to magnetize the abundance that everyone here is seeking and they deserve. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Well, out of college, I went to work for the Trammell Crow companies on the commercial side, did residential lot development. So the company would buy land, put in streets and utilities, and sell lots to home builders. And one of the vice presidents did a startup. So I was doing a startup before doing startups. Was cool. Met my husband. We married, had our 2 children, and my husband's career took us from Dallas to the Washington, D.C. metro region, as you mentioned, McLean, Virginia, inside the Beltway, where Amazon HQ2 is. If your people are trying to focus on where we are logistically, the CIA is very nearby. And because of my husband's profession really requiring a lot of travel, I became the primary caregiver and stayed that way for over a dozen years. Dabbled a little part-time things. Decided to re-enter the workforce, and I wanted to go back into commercial real estate because I always had this love of it, and went to work for the Staubach company, another Texas company, and had the Nextel account and did the sales engineering warehouse offices. Well, I found pretty quickly there wasn't anything more boring than sales engineering and warehouse offices because once you've seen one, you've seen them all. And at the time, it was the tech bust. So if you remember 2002, that was really in disposition mode, technology. Staubach lost the account. And I could have gone to work for Nextel, but I was like, again, found it very boring. So I had a friend say, well, why don't you do residential real estate? And I'll just say people on the commercial side, they look at the residential side and they go, commercial side, we do the hard things, the serious things. We do the financial, and we do the market strategy. We do, negotiations. And you all over the residential side only do just relationships and people. Well, what I found is I actually have both sides. The hard and the soft sides. I really love the people, and I love being part of their lives, and quickly became what I guess some people would consider the rookie of the year. And that led to people recognizing that I was meeting with success. And one of the top agents in the nation at the time, she was number 10, Sue Huckaby, she asked me to become her partner. And that happened in 2006. And then in 2008, sadly, she passed away. Well, that was the same month as the market crash. It was a very devastating September 2008 for me.
Wow.
But I'm a very resilient person and resourceful. And I remembered a lot of what happened in the 80s in the market correction of the savings and loan crisis. And I put those skills to test, the muscle memory, and set about rebuilding the company and moved the company to Keller Williams. And I met my current business partner, Lizzie Conroy. Actually, we were acquainted at church. She was a past client. She's 15 years younger than me. I decided instead of waiting until the end of my career and my life, I wanted a partner now. I miss being a partnership. So when you say the HBC, so Huckaby Briscoe Conroy, that's where that comes from. So Lizzie and I set about rebuilding, and we, did whatever it took. We're predominantly an upper bracket business because we're in a high cost of living dollar area. And in 2019 had our best year ever, which was sold 91 million, about 90 homes. So about 900,000 to a million average sales price. And along the way, I was meeting with a lot of success, and people want to know how you do that, particularly when you would go through what I went through, in addition to surviving the market crash, but losing my partner. And that led to coaching and speaking and training, which is, often happens. And that led to a lot of the other, what I call my creative endeavors, which were the books and the podcast. So that kind of gets us up to present, the last few years, which was the book came out in August of 2016, the first book, Real Estate Success in 5 Minutes a Day.
So I want to dig into this a little bit because it's funny. We always have highly successful individuals as guests on the show, and people just like to glaze over selling 100 homes a year, 91 million, like no big deal. And really what it all comes down to is not to desensitize it, because we're in the business of building relationships, like we're in the human being business. But at the end of the day, we all know that success comes as a result of lead generation activities. Like your first priority is to create the relationships and create the business. Your second priority is to nurture it. And so I think what I see a lot in our industry is that it's hard for folks to get to 100 homes a year because they consistently generate the business and consistently stop generating business to nurture the business. And I know that Real Estate Success in 5 Minutes a Day is heavily focused on your lead generation strategies, correct?
Well, actually, you hit the nail on the head, because that's what came out of it. Well, first of all, the 5 Minutes a Day came about because people would tell me they didn't have time to invest in their personal business development. I'm like, well, do you have 5 minutes a day? And everybody said they did. So that's why the structure of the book is what I call it's a daily reader, and it's an opportunity to invest 5 minutes a day into your personal and business development. And the first thing is commit to get leads. It's business development, prospecting, lead generation. Then it's also consult to sell, which is what some people call the conversion process. So that's taking the lead and going through the process till there's actually business comes on the other end. What often happens is, as you mentioned, salespeople, entrepreneurs, they often get on this hamster wheel, is only as good as their next deal. And it really creates this cyclical business. And that's where I was like, there's principles to connect, to build and grow, to create scale and leverage and systems. And by doing that, then you will get off that roller coaster and you will create, something that is more sustainable. And then I realized, well, everybody who meets with success has these principles of success thinking, success activities, and success vision. So there's a lot of, vision boarding in our industry, and that has its place. I have one I'm looking at right now for 2020. But that also requires success thinking. Some people, affirmations, that type of thing, but then the actions for putting into place. So back to the very beginning, it all begins with lead generation, because until you have a lead, you really don't have anything to do. And it's not just the same true with salespeople. I mean, think about your dentist, right? They call those patients. Think about your church, right? They call those, parishioners. You think about the restaurants, right? I mean, everybody has some sort of connection or relationship. They do something to bring customers, clients to them. I am a firm believer in active, proactive lead generation. In fact, I can go back to my very first weeks, months, years of the business, because I've tracked it the entire time. So we're almost 18 years of following a commitment to contacting, touching in some way, 5 people per working day. So that is most often 25 a week. But I really believe in that personal self-accountability of tracking. Many people use time blocking, and if that's working for you, then there's something to be said for what, success. But what I find is with activity blocking is that you can do what I call front loading. So you can work ahead, you can do backfilling if you get busy, and you, with other things, you're going to get back to it. You're going to do the work. But also you can see where your business is coming from, and you can then focus on what you focus on, expands. And so there's so many reasons why, but that commitment to lead generation is something that I have always done in my business, and the people that I work with that are successful do as well.
Okay, so I want to dig into this a little bit because, first of all, I love that you talk about tracking. I always joke that I'm embarrassed to admit that in spite of all the advice of every coach I've ever had, I didn't start tracking my activity religiously until probably my 12th year in the business. And
oh, wow.
Well, I mean, I did here and there, but not in the way that I did in that 12th year. And well, maybe it was 13th year. Anyways, I mean, I did it, but in 2019, I also had the best year ever with a 59% increase over the year before. And I became religious about tracking. And it's funny because there's so many people that end up as entrepreneurs that are seeking freedom and flexibility, free spirits they don't want to be bound by the rules of the 9 to 5, et cetera. And so they take the leap of faith like I did with no game plan, no systems, et cetera. And then it's like, you're just kind of winging it, going through things, keeping yourself busy, but busy with what? And so, I mean, personally, when I put a little bit of structure in place in the way of tracking, there was already structure in the way of lead gen, but I found that that little bit of structure was actually liberating. And a lot of people feel like having a schedule, time blocking, tracking, that's going to be suffocating. And the reality is that there's actually a simplicity to success. And there's a simplicity between like the activity and the results. And when you track it, you see the black and white, the correlation, the science behind it. And then it's like, wait a minute. Okay, if I do this and I commit to doing this, like you said, 5 contacts a day, and I track it, and then I see where my business comes from, then if I want to shift where my business comes from, I can shift my activity and then see a direct correlation. So one of my questions for you is, a lot of times I feel like there's a prescription for success in our industry, right? Make the calls, write the notes, see the people. But a lot of people get stuck on like, well, if I pick up the phone to call you, you're going to think I'm being salesy and I'm just trying to get a deal and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel in alignment. So what did you do for your own mindset to remove that voice in your head, that limiting belief that says like, I'm worried about what people are going to think of me if I call them? Like what's the message for you?
Well, there's so much there that you shared. And first of all, I'm going to focus on the freedom thing. I find it tracking to be free because once I've done my 5, then I'm like, I'm good. I can go do whatever I want to do, right? So I have found it to be very freeing. And the whole front loading is really freeing for me. Right now, my plan is to go to a 12-week year. And so I'm actually front loading 3-month segments. And my idea is that I want to create more space and time for the things that I, want to do. And to do that, this is how I fund my freedom, right? So I look at it as very freeing. So I feel the same way. Actually, part of the hesitation I had, or a lot of the hesitation I had of leaving the commercial side to the residential side was I would be going into the sales arena, which I had these limiting beliefs about. I went into it with a spirit of service, and I know that you're, familiar with the Go Giver and Bob Berg, and I believe for me that what I'm doing is offering a service, and I frequently talk about that, about how help people. This year, our team is every 5 years we do kind of a rebrand, refresh, refocus, and this year our campaign is we live here, we work here, we get back here. Your agents for life, because we really want to be and are community stewards and helping people. And I've had several situations in my career where I've been reminded of this, almost convicted. I probably was in the business 10 years and was out viewing homes because that's how I stay current on the market. My inventory is houses. And I ran into an old neighbor, and she said, "What are you doing over here?" I was like, "Well, I'd like to see the houses and see what's going on. And, I used to live here, and it's important for me to know." She goes, "Oh, I always thought you'd be too busy for that." And so then we chatted for a little while, and then we talked about our kids and everything that was going on. And we left the conversation, we'll stay in touch, whatever. And I got home and I was like, I never offered my help. And so I wrote her a note and I said, "Debbie, I just want you to know I always have time for you and your real estate needs. So if you ever need anything, I'm here to help." And she called me up. She goes, "Oh my gosh, that just, first of all, it made her day." I was just like, "I can't believe how much you care." And I know there's the quote, people don't want to know how much you know until they know how much you care. It turned out her husband had Parkinson's disease. He wasn't doing well at all. They really needed to sell the family home so that she could have the money to put him in proper care facility. She needed to downsize her own living space. We helped sell her house. We helped her get into a condo. Her husband has since passed. But her girls grew up with my daughter, and I just think it's my obligation. It's my obligation to tell people that I'm here to help them. And if they aren't sure, then I want to let them know. Now, the other side of that is where I think another thing that holds people up, and myself included, is, well, what if they don't pick me? What if they're a friend or a past client or somebody who picks someone else? And that can be very hard. Personal rejection. I think that it's personal because it's impacting you, right? I mean, I remind sales professionals to watch the movie You've Got Mail, because if you'll remember, Meg Ryan she's got the little shop around the corner, and the big bad bookstore is opening up, Fox Books, and this is back in the day when it was exciting to get mail and actually dinged. I told you. So they were having this conversation over email that they did not know that they were each other. And she asked him for help about how to, that her business was in trouble. And he's like, "I'm a business person. I can help you." And he says, it's not personal, it's business, is what he said to her. So she put on her fighting gloves and went out. And that's what I remind people. It's not personal, it's business. They later, when they meet and start to have a relationship, she says, he apologized for putting her out of business. And she says, you say it's not personal, but it is personal because it's personal to me. Mm-hmm. I care. So people care, okay? They care deeply. They care deeply on both sides, right? The way I look at it is, if they're a friend or a past client or some sort of relationship or neighbor, and they don't pick me, the last thing I want to do is pile insult to injury and then make them feel like I'm upset. So first of all, if I know, I always release them, and I give them permission to do what they feel is right for them. And if they change their mind, they can come back. Mm-hmm. So I actually had this happen recently. I had known these people. Our sons were in scouts together. Our sons are now 30 plus years old. And they were going to pick a lower cost brokerage. And they came to me and told me that. And I said, I can understand how you might feel. Other people have felt that way before. What we have found is oftentimes lower cost doesn't mean that you're going to come out on better in the long run. And so I just want to, open up the conversation that if you want to revisit this, I would like to have that opportunity. And so I released them. And it turned out they came back to me. They found that wasn't what they really wanted. And so I find that it's kind of a both sides. First of all, as a business owner, it's business, not personal. So it's not about me. It's almost always about something that's going on in their life. And then I put up this thing I call a grace shield. I give them a lot of grace, and I just surround them with it, because there may be something that's going on in their life that I don't know about. And then I create that, some people call it law of attraction, but I just create that positive energy that I can attract them back. But if anything, for sure, I will keep them as a friend, a neighbor, an acquaintance. That attraction is what I want to be so attractive that they will think well about me and positive about me. Because what I find happens is when agents or salespeople, they start putting up that resistance, and what you resist persists, and it just actually repels people. They start running the other way in the grocery store or at church. I've seen that happen with a mortgage lender. Actually, they would just run the other direction. I could just see it. It's like this force field. So those are just a couple of the philosophies that I've embraced through the years that have helped me and the agents that I've worked with.
I love that. I love that you said two things that I love that you said what you focus on expands. And it's interesting because when agents and lenders, let's be real, any salespeople, entrepreneurs, like when you fear the activity that we call lead generation, but it's really just relationship development, right? But when you fear it and you run from it, you see your business is struggling. You can't seem to get any traction. You don't know why, et cetera. And then it's funny because sometimes on my team, if we've gotten really busy with transactions, we're putting out fires, there's stuff going on. And next thing you know, we've kind of lost sight of the lead generation activities and we've fallen off the wagon and we need to kind of get back in, get things back in order and get back on track. Even just having a conversation about the number of relationships we have in our life and our business that we love and who we want to put our attention on and people that we want to call and thank and appreciate and love on. Just having that conversation, it's hilarious. We get off the phone and all of a sudden there's leads coming in because we've turned our attention to the abundance, the gratitude, the beauty, and the love that surrounds us in our life and business. And the next thing you know, business is flowing to us. But I've never heard what you resist persists. That is so interesting that I've never heard that. And I love that so much. And I love the grace.
Well, and what you appreciate appreciates.
Mm-hmm.
You focused on that. That is really true. What you appreciate appreciates. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something, because at Pursuing Freedom, the content of the book is kind of like how to get your business off the ground in a way that feels authentic and servant hearted and, value adding and all that kind of stuff. But then later, the podcast has really been about uncovering this idea of finding the ability to give yourself permission to enjoy the freedom and flexibility you were seeking all along, instead of meeting success, as you mentioned, and then getting caught on that hamster wheel of just surviving it and sucking it up and being at the top of your game, but being out of alignment in all other areas of your life. And you alluded to a 12-week year. So talk to me a little bit about how your journey evolved from, hey, okay, this is my lead generation strategy. These are my relationship building tactics. This is my self-help, my self-actualization, and how I navigate that from as an individual. And then how do you create an amazing life where you find joy and you don't lose yourself on that journey of success amidst 91 million in volume and 100 homes a year? Like, what does the 12-week year look like? What does that mean to you?
Well, there's actually a book and a program by Brian Moran. So I just kind of borrowed the concept and the idea of it. I'd done a kind of a coaching program on it a couple of years ago, but I didn't really dive into it. But it hit me this year because 2020, we had this vision, right? 2020 vision. We'd done this whole vision work day, coaching day, and then COVID happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, everything that was, well, not everything, so many things that were planned for 2020 are changed. And so I went back to the idea of, okay, well, what if you plan on smaller increments? And the most logical one is, the 12 weeks, the quarters. And so I set about to make the planning based on that time increment, which works well because there's, for a business planning, actually 12 weeks is very, very good structure. The idea of the self-actualization, that hit me when I actually was meeting with a lot of success. I had the books, I had the podcast of the 5-Minute Success Podcast, was ranked number 1 by Overcast, most recommended business podcast, and have had over 250 amazing conversations. And I was meeting with success and I was like, okay, but there was still something more for me to do. I don't want to say missing, but just something more for me to do. I was like, I have achieved what I think everybody says they want, right? I have a successful business. I marriage of over 3 decades with my husband. My children are launched and doing well in their lives. And I can go anywhere I want. I can do anything I want because I'm self-employed. And I was like, but there's still something more. And so that led me on this journey of what I call flip time, love life. So what happened was because of the time, I've kind of become a time expert because when you talk about 5-minute success, everybody wants to know how do you achieve it by just investing 5 minutes a day. And I'm like, well, if you start small and build up, that's where you can have an impact. You either have the impact of hitting over dominoes, or you have the impact of it building like a snowball, or you have the impact of like a ripple, but it starts to impact your life. And that's what was happening to me is the more I was pursuing creative and contribution endeavors, the more successful my business became. Mm-hmm. And I want to be sure I share this quote from Lao Tzu. Time is a created thing. To say I don't have time is like saying I don't want to. Because I kept saying I didn't have time to do what I wanted to do. And that's where the idea came to flip time. Because many people talk about time management, which it really isn't time that you're managing, right? Because if it's a created thing, you're managing yourself, right? You're managing your energy. So I came up with the idea of flipping time because many people remember like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And really, as human beings, we really do follow this, right? So the basic physical needs. So just think about COVID. What was the first thing people went after was toilet paper. I mean, they're like meeting their basic human needs, right? And then the next thing is security and safety, right? I mean, this is like what people have, are about. They really care about safe at home, security your sanctuary, and how can you be safe? Are you safe if you wear a mask? Are you safe if you stay 6 feet apart? What is safety and security? And then the esteem needs, relationship needs, and then self-actualization. What happens if you run out of time and you don't get to self-actualization? Because many people say, well, I'll do that when I retire to the mountains, right? Or I'll do it when my kids are grown, or I'll do it when this happens, or this happens, or this happens. Then I will be happy. Then I will focus on my bliss, I will focus on my creative ideas, or I'm going to give back to the community, and then I'm going to volunteer, or whatever it is. It's meaningful for you. I was like, well, what if you flip the whole thing? What if we start with self-actualization? Because it really is all life. There is no such thing as a work-life balance. I mean, if you really think about the concept of balance, if you're saying there's work and then life, then that means something is struggling or suffering, right? You're taking away from one to do the other, and that's not what that we want, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing people have found is people do want work. Meaningful work is part of our esteem needs, right? It's also part of our relationship needs. We realize how much we miss people, right? When we are doing a lot of Zoom calls and, sheltering at home, safe at home. So anyhow, the truth is the idea to flip time to love the life you have as you create the life and co-create the life of your dreams is in fact more, I think, evident now, and it's a both and. So many times people are like, okay, I'm going to do this so that I can have that later, and obviously there's benefit in planning, and I'm not like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but I'm saying, but love the life you have right now too, right? So don't sacrifice your life now for a future maybe. Do both. Love what you do now, and as you create the life of your dreams in the future. And, much of that has changed, right? I mean, my plans for 2020, I was supposed to be in Portugal right now, actually, with my son. So that didn't happen, but we found other ways to connect and do meaningful things. And I look at this as, if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell and the whole heroes and heroines journey, and the reason why I really like the way Joseph Campbell's looks at it is it's circular. So this is a never ending, this is an ever continuous process, is a better way to look at it. We go out on our call to adventure, call to creativity, call to contribution. We come back bearing gifts. We've met mentors along the way. We've also met challenges, but we come back and we're ready to go back out again into the world to do what we're called to do and be.
Well, you pretty much just spelled out the entire of the podcast and pursuing freedom in general. Love the life you have while you create the life of your dreams. I love that so much. I was talking with someone recently about this idea of like what at first the result of COVID, how we felt stripped of so much, right? Like, and then at first it was really anxiety inducing for a lot of us. And then as we were forced to kind of slow down and take stock of what we have, I know in my own journey, I can read through my journal over the past couple of months and see a lot of like, today I'm going to focus on who I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Who do I want to be in this world? And how do I want to show up for my children, for my husband, for my loved ones, my friends and family, my team, et cetera, instead of focusing the second you wake up on what you want to do today. So it's first, who do I want to be? And once I know who I want to be, that can help me clarify what I should do today. And when you focus on being, you end up attracting what you want to have, if that makes sense. So like, I just love that love the life you have while you create the life of your dreams. My last question for you is, I'm just curious, if you can share, you've already shared a number of books and folks that have influenced you, but if you could share any books or trainings that have helped to mold your vision for the life that you're creating, powered by the business that you've created, which is so successful. Are there any other influencers that you've encountered along the way?
So Hal Elrod and the Miracle Morning and the Miracle Morning community, it really did. I had written the book Real Estate Success in 5 Minutes a Day, and somebody said that I should meet Hal Elrod and have him endorse my book. And so once I did, I understand why, because he has the Miracle Morning has really been impactful for starting the day, as you said, how you want to be, and so. And if you're not familiar with him, but he has this program called SAVERS, and it's an acronym to help remember the things. So S is silence or meditation, A is affirmations, V is visualization, E is exercise, R is reading, and S is scribing or journaling. And so he did endorse the book for the reading component of the Savers. And then once I met him and then started being part of his community and going to the events and the masterminds, really those connections have been really instrumental in my journey. And it's changed now with the way events are being held now, but it's still, the connections are still there and very, very meaningful.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I always talk about how the book, The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents, completely changed my life in 2015. And it's been an incredible journey ever since. And I attribute so much of that to that morning routine. And I love his podcast, Achieve Your Goals. It's an incredible podcast. And yeah, he's an incredible human. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, I want to honor your time. And I know that you and I could go on for hours.
We could.
So,
that's for sure.
Guys listening, be sure to find the 5 Minute Success podcast to get more of Karen and find her books online. Karen, if folks want to connect with you, find you, follow you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, so it's a number 5 Minute Success. So it makes it easy for finding all the creative endeavors. The website, Facebook, Instagram, so all the social media. And then the podcast is also the number 5 Minute Success, and incredible guests, including Hal Elrod. And I have been a guest on his podcast as well, Achieve Your Goals. And for the real estate world, and all the books are on Amazon, the bulk copies, you can contact me and give you a price break. The real estate world is the HBC group at Keller Williams, and pretty much you can Google Karen Briscoe and you'll find me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your energy, your inspiration, your wisdom. It's been amazing having you on the show. I really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you as well, and here's to your success.
You too. And for all my Pursuing Freedom friends, thank you guys as always for tuning in. I so appreciate you. And if you have a moment and you're enjoying this content, I would implore you to please take the time to leave a review wherever you're consuming this content. It helps us continue to attract amazing people like Karen who can help you continue on your journey to building a life you don't need a vacation from. I love and appreciate you. Make it an awesome day.